So, this is Torah for the Nations, B'nai Noach Connection with Israel. This is Pesach coming to you live from Sfat, Israel, where it is right now 2 o'clock in the morning. And it is the 31st of, Halloween, 31st of October. And Terry, co-host, is here from Tennessee. And as usual, we have our usual guests here, Troy, Thomas, Scotty, Veronica, Devorah. Hope some more show up here in a little while. They probably will. We're here to help people essentially on their journey of being a Noahide, which I prefer to call it the righteous of the nations, because that's what it's called in the Torah. People that aren't Jewish but are connected to the God of Israel, because you don't have to be Jewish to be connected to the God of Israel. We enjoy these weekly meetings. They help us all. They help me, and they help everybody else with their walk with the God of Israel. So thanks for joining in. We also want to thank those who send us along a little support to help us keep things running and making our connections with other people around the world. So this week is the Torah portion, Noach. We read in the Torah this week. Last week it was Genesis. And this is the very beginning of all things. We're in the Hebrew month of Tishrei, and we just rolled over we finished Tishrei, and we moved over to the month of Cheshvan. This is the first of Cheshvan, or actually at nighttime it went over to the second of Cheshvan. It's the only month where there's no holiday in it. The only month of the year where there's no holiday, no Remembrance Day, no fast day, no anything. We just finished a whole month of all these kind of things, and now we got a month of kind of freedom type thing where we aren't focused on anything before we start back into the cycle again. We started reading the book of Genesis, which is just absolutely, I think, one of the most exciting books of the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, because it covers such a long period of time, first of all. And secondly, it's how everything started. How everything started. We don't have to go over the story of the flood and everything again. You guys all know it. But we are coming in now to Noah, or Noach, whose name actually means to give rest, or to rest, to give peace, not peacefulness, not shalom, like peace between people, but just a restfulness, to make things easier for people. That's what Noah's name means. There were people that before the flood that were connected to the God of Israel. He didn't call himself the God of Israel yet. That wasn't one of the names he used, but he was connected to, they were connected to God. Noah was one of them, the last one from before the flood. Methuselah was one, Enoch was one, and there were others you can go through and find and name, but those are the ones we most are knowledgeable of. And every single human being can call themselves a B'nai Noach, because who else is there to of us to have descended from except Noah after the flood? His sons are all sons of Noach, and there's a lot of discussion, and it's semantic. Are we Noahites or Noahides or whatever? But we're all human beings descended from the same man. And some of the people went this way, and some this way, and some another way. And until Abraham, nobody actually publicly went out and started a campaign to connect people with God. People had connections with God. They were a part of God. As the question was put in the chat room earlier, how old are our souls? God is infinite, and we are sparks of the divine. We all are infinite beings. Everything was created in creation, so were we. We just waited for God to give us an entrance into this world. There's a lot of things going on in Noah, but there's a couple of things here. I'm going to try to bring up one of the things to give me a reminder. There we go. You know, when we read about Noah, we read about his failings, what he didn't do. He's a pretty complicated guy. But I want you to think about something. Noah could be called a lonely man of faith, in quotation marks, living in a depraved world. How do you guys feel? You guys are walking a road. He was the only guy. He was alone. Nobody else around. They laughed at him. They made fun of him. He went through humiliation to fulfill what God wanted him to fulfill. And people looked at him and just, told him how stupid he was and how funny it is. And they didn't friend him. If he'd had Facebook back then, he would have had 0 friends, because nobody was walking that way. And it brings us to a question, since God says about Noah that he was the most righteous he was the righteous person among his generation. And what does it mean exactly? See, we have to look at how we have our relationship with God. And are we just doing what he wants us to do, or are we dedicating ourselves to him? And there's a difference. There's a subtle difference between dedicating yourself to the task that God wants you to do and dedicating oneself to God. Anybody, whether they are believing God or not, can do the 5 of the 7 universal laws, and so they're doing what God wants. They're not dedicating themselves to him at all. And then they're the ones that dedicate themselves to tasks of doing it. Okay, I believe in the God of Israel. Okay, I don't defame him. I don't worship idols. And I don't do any of the other, I'm good. I don't violate the other 5 or the conditions that are put on under them. And I'm good. I'm doing it. I'm doing what he asks. Well, that's fine. But just to do them in your head and do them and say, okay, I believe in the God of Israel. I don't pray to any other God. I've left some other religion. And I'm following these 7 universal laws. So you're doing your job. And you can dedicate yourself to dedicate yourself to doing the job itself. Or you can dedicate yourself to God, which includes doing the job that he asks you to do. People think that to become a person righteous of the nations, or Noahide, or B'nai Noach, or Bat Noach, whatever it is, they think, okay, I'm doing what he wants, I'm good. But there's a difference between the way you do things. I can only put this, there's a horizontal connection to people. How I interact with other people and how I treat them and how I go about my life every day and how I speak, and I don't get angry at people and I don't make faces and I'm not constantly judging them. And that's horizontal between people, but it's missing a very important connection. You see, we're connected to God. We're part of God. And if we take that out of the equation and don't think about it, even though we're a good person, even though we follow what God says to do, if we do not, everything we do first doesn't go up, connect to God, and then come back down to the other person, we're not doing what we're supposed to do entirely. In other words, if I'm going to say something to someone, I should think first, is this truly, okay, I'm going to be nice to the person. Am I going to have a good attitude with them? But am I also giving them a little taste of God in what I'm doing? Or I'm just being a good guy? I'm being a good guy. I'm doing it. Okay, great. I'm a wonderful person. Or are you connecting to God and bringing that back down to earth to the other person? What's the difference? Because there is a difference. What we're supposed to be doing, everything we do is supposed to be to honor and love God. So if we're doing something, and here I'm sitting with you guys talking, and everything I'm doing, first I have to send up to God and make sure that He's included in what I'm bringing down and giving to you. I can sit here coldly and tell you, here's the rules, here's do this, do that, and then, okay, you're good. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be all this spiritual, and know all things in depth or anything like that. That's to each individual. Some people are kind of tired with the way things were in the other religions they were in, and they don't want to do it in that manner. They want to have a more direct connection with somebody. They don't want to have to feel like they have to, everything has to be done in a, okay, I'm going to say it. I try not to be negative, but the only way I can say this is there's some people that come from one particular religion that they force themselves to be all this sugary and spice nice. It's almost a fakeness that comes through when they're dealing with you. And it's like, see how nice I am, and this is the way my God wants me to be, and I'm so sweet to everybody. But you feel it's like almost like a act you're putting on. Our job, the human being's job, whether we are Jewish or whether we're not Jewish, it doesn't make any difference, is to connect first with God, the one that calls himself the God of Israel. That's our first connection. Once we connect with him, we have that connection, whatever we do, we're bringing that connection to the next person. They can actually feel it in you. You don't have to put on some false airs. You don't have to walk around sugary and spicy is the only thing I can think of. I hope somebody else is I hope I'm getting across what I mean. It's almost a fake attitude. They even speak in some kind of voice that, almost makes you feel like they're being condescending to you or something. That's the feeling I get about it. And then when you decide you're going to do something different, then they still say, most of them keep on sugary and spice, but this is going to happen to you, and that's going to happen to you, and you're going to go to hell. And these people don't quite have the connection proper. You guys, when you talk to somebody, and by your actions and your attitude, the way you talk to people should help help people make the connection with God, even if they're not physically, they're not saying, this guy's really connected to God, or this woman's really connected to God. We have a condition that most of us don't realize. It's our God part of us talking to the God part of the other person. And if we don't have the connection proper with God, then we can't talk in that way. You know that when you're dealing with some of the people, most of you, I guess, or all of you came out of Christianity, when you're talking to somebody there's no communication. you can say words, but there's no communication. It's almost like you're talking two different languages. Because you're bringing heaven down here to earth each time you do something, each time you talk to them. You're bringing a little more of what God wants down to the earth to help complete this whole scenario of creation. And if you talk to somebody in a condescending way, or you're looking at them and saying, oh, these guys are idiots, they believe this other thing and they don't believe what I believe, and they, even if you, no matter how nicely you speak to them, they're picking up on it. You know, the rabbis say to a Jew, if you go to another Jew and he's not doing something proper and you want to correct him, what do they call it, reproof or something? I think that's what it's called. When you reprove somebody and they don't get it, it's not their fault. It's your fault. God says you have to talk to the person from your heart to their heart, and you have to understand that if you don't communicate properly, you're the problem, not the other person. You have to know, you have to first show somebody God's love. In other words, how do you show it? Through yourself. You have to be friends with them. They have to feel some type of connection with you. And then you're able to bring down to them the connection with God. And you don't have to sit there and explain it to them and give them a lesson. You don't have to tell people how bad they are for having idol worship. And then the people are going to say, well, we don't worship an idol, we worship God. It's the same God you worship. It's all that kind of stuff. So Noah went through this problem before the flood. Can you imagine living 120 years, building the ark? First, you had to grow the trees. They wanted to know why he was going through all this problem of growing the trees, getting them to a certain height, cutting them down, cutting boards. Noah's having a discussion with God during this whole time. The other people didn't see God involved in it at all. They just saw some lunatic doing all this work. What do you mean it's going to rain? It doesn't rain where we live. Who ever heard of rain where we live? Who's going to build a boat where we live? You know, I was growing up, we had, my dad always had boats out on Chesapeake Bay. We weren't too far from it. And the road we took us out to Chesapeake Bay. One day we look up between two houses and we see this guy is building a boat frame. And it got about a year or so, it got bigger than the space between the two houses that was built between. It was in the backyard. And this boat kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And he built himself a yacht in his backyard. And those were back in the days where the houses were, you know, they weren't as big as they are today. And everybody had smaller yards and everything. It was like, I don't know, we used to call them cookie cutter homes. They all looked the same. And we discussed for years how this guy was going to get this boat out of the backyard. What a waste of time. One summer, we're getting ready to go out the first time down to Chesapeake Bay, and as we go by the house, we look, and there's an empty space. The house is gone. So is the boat. So this guy built a boat in his backyard, knocked down the house, which I guess he considered temporary, and put the boat, took it out on Chesapeake Bay, and put it in the water. And he went to live on it. Meanwhile, we spent years going by laughing. Look at this. What kind of guy builds that size boat in the backyard? Imagine Noah and everybody coming by him and saying, oh, you idiot. What the heck are you doing? He took a lot of humiliation. He took a lot of degradation. People laughed at him. And in the end, who had the last laugh? But the point is, he was working directly for God. he wasn't working for anybody but God. He had a connection with God that some people say until Abraham, Isaac, Jacob came around, and Moses, his actual connection with God was higher than anyone else's. Doesn't mean he was righteous in his generation. If you compare it to the generation before the flood, a lot of people could have been righteous for what they were doing compared to those people who were that God got rid of and started a whole new world. But the point is, he didn't have, or didn't have a communication with God that had everything in it that Abraham and Isaac and Jacob had. He didn't. It was before the Torah was given to mankind. It was before it would existed. It just hadn't been handed to us to go and study and learn yet. And so he had this direct connection with God. And every time I think about it, there's a movie with John Voight and I want to say Susan, I forget who played the wife, but not this last Noah movie, which was terrible. And hey, way to go, Richard. There's Chabad has a Parashat Noah tech questions, and he said he got 10 out of 10. Way to go. I just break up laughing every time I think of this scene. Noah is in a field way off down towards one end, and you see him hands in the air. He's looking up and he's talking and he's doing all this kind of stuff. And then as it pulls back, his wife is standing there, and she calls over the sons. Says, your father's at it again. Look at him over there. And the sons start laughing at the father. And when you see John Voight playing the part, he looks like a lunatic. He looks crazy. And he's talking to God. But this is the way other people saw him. He connected with God. God gave him the plans, everything. You know the story. I don't have to go into all that. The point is, he had that direct connection to God. And he dedicated himself to what God wanted him to do. There's a difference between just doing things God says to do it, but he dedicated himself to it. He just did the practical things that God wanted, and he did it, connected to God, and did everything God told him to do, giving him total credit, having a relationship with God. He actually had a relationship. We don't hear about that again until Abraham. Other people, of course, learned. Shem and his great-grandson Ever set up a school to teach people about it. They didn't evangelize it. They didn't go out and spread the word. People had to come to them. They had to look for it. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob all studied there from Shem. Shem did so much work for God, he actually became the king of Jerusalem, or it was called Salem back then. And he actually had, before Cohens were people, here's who the Cohens are going to be. He was the Cohen for God. He was God's representative. And he comes down and meets Abraham after the war he had, the first wars ever in the Bible. We talked about it then. And he greets him with wine and bread. And then he says something to Abraham that changes history. Simple little statement. The first thing he did was honor Abraham, and then he honored God. He put God second in what he said. And we're going to be reading it in a week or two. The point is, his first thought was on Abraham and not on God. Because of that, God took the right to be a Cohen, a high priest, away from Shem's family. And it moved over to Abraham's family and descendants from Abraham. A simple little thing like that. Why? If he had put God first and he had reversed the order, it'd have been perfect. This is what God wants from us today. No different. And it wasn't like he wasn't a righteous person. He was called the angel or the king of righteousness, Melachi Tzedek, king of righteousness. But because he reversed the order of his thought in his head, maybe just for that instant, who knows, it still shows that he didn't put God first. He put something else first. In this case, it was Abraham. So we learn something from that. The Torah is very, very graphic about things, but you have to look for what it means. So let's take this back to Noah again and before the flood. If people were worried, and back before the flood, they were worried about themselves before they worried about the other people and just didn't care about God. And we say, oh, how terrible that is. Well, yeah, it's terrible. But Noah always put God first, even when he got drunk after the flood. He took care of what God wanted before he took care of himself or thought of himself or anything else. First thing was, what does God want in this instance? What is God telling me? So he connects to God. His connection goes up and it comes back down to earth. What does he bring back down to earth? Because he did this after the flood, God says, I'm removing the curse from the earth. And things are going to be easier for man when they grow their food. And Noah is actually credited with the first plow. So people didn't have to go down the field with little poles, punching little holes in the ground and dropping the seeds in and that kind of thing. But what happened was Noah, no matter what his faults were, whether he got drunk or all this other stuff, he was connected to God first. So he connected, and then God gave him a little bit of heaven to bring down to earth. How can I say that? Well, where does Noah get the idea of the plow from? Where does he get the idea how to plant the vineyards from and do all the things that he did? It was knowledge from God that God gave him to do, and he followed through on it. This is what we're supposed to do. The first thing we need to do in our lives is be connected always to God. He's got to be the first thing that we think about, not what the other person did to me, not what I want to do to the other person, not how I want to treat the person or how God wants me to treat the person. Now, some of us, we think, okay, God says don't murder. Okay, I don't want to murder anybody. I'm not going to murder anybody. But he also wants us to treat them in a proper way, talk to them in a proper way, not get angry about things. Don't get jealous. Don't let those emotions rise up inside of you that are negative things. They are darkness. They're total darkness. Now, when you make this connection with God, nobody says you have to walk off get some spiritual pool or something. And in most religions, there's I don't know if you've ever seen the Muslims. They get into these chanting sessions and they're all bouncing up and down and hitting themselves on the chest. There's other religions, even the Muslims even use a machete sometimes on their own heads and get all bloody. There are other religions that people throw themselves on the floor and cry and moan in front of God and make all kinds of noises and stuff. God isn't asking that from anybody. He doesn't ask somebody to bark like a dog. He doesn't ask somebody to beat themselves with a switch. During the Byzantine era, it was a big thing that the Crusaders, especially the guys, the knights that used to work for the Byzantine churches, that was part of their daily ritual. They take their shirts off, go in front of a statue and beat themselves on the back with branches from a tree. You know, those little sapling things. God doesn't ask this from anybody. They thought they were being spiritual. They were going to earn something by doing something, earn something by suffering before God. This is a spiritual thing. We don't have to get involved in these deep spiritual things. God never asked anybody to do that. All he asks somebody to do is have a connection with him, to put him first before things. And then use the things in your everyday life to remind people there is a God. That doesn't mean say, hey, you know there's a God, I'm going to do this because God says to do it. It means every single time you do something, you think about God first. Is this what God wants me to do? Now, a lot of people use this, somebody makes them angry, so I'm going to count to 10 before I say anything. It essentially comes from some teachings about thinking about God first. We're supposed to, if someone starts to make you angry or jealous or hateful, in your mind should be the question, is this what my God wants from me? Is that spiritual? No. It's a very simple question. How does God want me to treat the other person? So it's important to think about that at all times. I'm going to read this comment because it kind of fits in what we're talking about here. It says, I understand you can't walk around with a fake smile, insincerely dealing with others, but generally I tend to be a happy person. I get real annoyed with rude people. I can overlook ignorant people, but people who claim to care about others and act like a real pain to others get under my skin. Can we ever put someone in their place, specifically if they have a habit of being, for lack of a better word, a jerk? The simple answer is no. That's not our job. The minute we have a negative feeling about somebody, we don't have the feeling God wants us to have. I learned a long time ago that if you go around with a smile and you greet people with a smile, no matter how jerky they are back, you still greet them with a smile, because that's what God wants. You still show them a pleasantness, because that's what God wants. Now, if you're talking, most people are ignorant. They don't do it just because they're rude. They're just ignorant. But people that claim to care about others, and then you see them doing things that don't back up their claim, that's their problem with God. It's not your problem. It shouldn't set off any negative emotion in you. You should just say, okay, that's who that person is, and they just haven't got their connection right with God yet. That's their problem. Every single one of us listening right now together, we've all been there, done that. Why are we here together? Because we realize that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to connect with God, and then not allow the negative emotions, and part of it is judging others. Judging others has become the greatest one thing that causes problems around the world today. In America, we wake up in the morning, take a cup of coffee, turn on the news, and you're hearing these negative things right away, and then the people that they're talking about, whether it's politicians or a criminal or something that happened, we're judging them immediately. Our mind goes into judgment mode. Good or bad, good, bad, good. Oh, what an idiot. Man, I can't believe that guy did that. We're not supposed to be in that mode. This comes from the Western combination of Roman, Greek, Christian thinking, constantly judging. we've all been taught that. We're taught it at school. We're taught it in our homes. Anybody that hasn't been walking a path that's connected to God is in judgment mode. Now, others say they're walking with God, but they're in judgment mode. Go ahead, Terry.
But it almost sounds like you're saying we got to be a pacifist by just, there's some things that are just wrong, and we got to stand up for things. I mean, I run in situations at work almost every day that the wrong work ethics, everybody is worried about what everybody else is not doing instead of doing what they're supposed to be doing. We're shorthanded. No one wants to take the effort to chip in, and pushes a lot of load on the ones who are trying to do what needs to be done. But there's got to be a time you've got to put your foot down when people are just being lazy or a pathetic work ethic. And I'm having a hard time. I can't be a pacifist about some of this stuff. I mean, it's about to make me blow. I mean, I had situations today where we're down 5 people in our department, and we got a ton of work to do, and I have a job to do, and I'm chipping in, helping others do their job. It puts me behind on mine. And then I got some that I'm just going to do what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to, not worry about the rest. And so, I mean, I kind of know where, Charlotte's coming through about my issues of work ethic. And sometimes I feel like, okay, I'm going to put my foot down because these people are just not doing what's required to get the job done as a whole. They're just doing what little they can do to get by. And that it's just, here work has really been getting worse with this situation. So, I mean, that's what I'm asking. I mean, it's almost like you're saying, well, we got to be a pacifist with this. It's their problem. But when their problem becomes my problem, how do you ignore that?
Actually, it's a very good question. When you start walking the right path and you have the right work ethic, and you see other people around you doing things that are actually, what they're doing is stealing, comes under the thing, you don't steal, because they're either stealing time they're getting paid for, and they're not doing their amount of work expected of them, or they finish the work expected of them and think that they can just sit down in a chair somewhere and relax and watch everybody else do their work without helping them. There's a couple of things involved here.
Yeah, I mean, we got one person, like, they one of their jobs is take morning stuff up to the dealership, but they make sure that they take so long to do. They'll take 30 minutes to do a 10-minute job, so when they get back, they don't have to do as much. They're forcing everybody else to pull up their slack, and then it's just like it's getting worse every day.
Yeah, well, that's essentially stealing, you see. When you do something like that, you're actually stealing from your employer. And when you have the proper relationship with God, you understand things like that.
I guess that's what irritates me.
Yeah. And the reason they're doing it is because they don't have the proper, they're thinking about themselves only. They're into idol worship, whether they know it or not. They don't think about helping others, being kind to others. They don't think about how everybody should get down to it. But the problem in a job where you get a salary for doing it, your obligation, my obligation, is to do what is required of me and what the job I was hired to do. If I get that done properly and I get it done under the allotted time that I'm given to do it, which doesn't happen very often in any workplace, but if it does, my specific job description, I get it done and I have an hour to help somebody, I would pick somebody out and help them get their part done. And if that's done, then you help somebody else get their part done. These people are doing this basically because they're doing it because they don't have the God connection. They don't know that they're stealing. They don't know that they're not being kind to other people. They're only thinking about themselves, but this is the way it's taught across the world today.
Well, how do we teach others about this without the religious approach? You know what I'm saying? Because especially in our area in the South, everything is, religious, this and that.
Right.
That would be a way of teaching, we're Noahides, and technically our laws they're practical and not really religious. And we
Right.
got to learn how to practically teach this to our world around us without dragging the religious effect in here. But also, though we're teaching it practically, we've got to bring that God connection in somehow. This is what we've got to learn to do, what I've got to learn to do.
Well, let's go back to Noah. He built this thing all by himself. He grew the trees by himself. He watered the trees by himself. He cut them down by himself. Everything he did by himself. He was doing what God told him to do, and nobody came up and said, "Hey, why are you doing this? Can I help? Do you need help? I'm sitting over here having a beer, watching you do all this stuff and laughing at you, but maybe I can help you out and get something done." Noah wasn't a good communicator in things like that. He also, what he was doing for God, he got so focused on it that he didn't focus on other people either. Before the flood, he never once went to God and said, "Wait a minute, have a little mercy on these people. Let's see if we can't help them out, get them through the flood." But what did he do after the flood? One of his prayers was that it wouldn't happen again, that people would understand that. And so we have this little teaching about God says to him, "Noah, now you say that to me? Why didn't you say it before the flood? Maybe more people would have come through. Why didn't you pray to me about it before the flood? You might have turned somebody's head instead of kind of being standoffish." Now, what does this have to do with how being at work and doing things with people we deal with? How do you deal with the trickle-down effect of selfish people? They're selfish, but they don't realize it. But when they see one person, instead of going to somebody and say, "Oh, you got time? Go help him over there. Do this, do that." That's a management job. We aren't in management. I'm not a king. I'm not an angel. I'm not Hashem. I'm just me. I'm going to do my job in front of people every day. And as I do my job, I'm going to, if I finish my job, like I have certain things I do every day. And then if I have time, if someone needs my help, I go give them help. Some people, I'll take grocery shopping or this or that or the other thing. But there are people out there that could do it for them that are just sitting around doing nothing. Or they're so concerned with study that that's all they do is study, don't think about helping other people do things. It is irritating as heck at work. I know that. Because here you're getting paid for your job, you're giving your employer full benefit of your work, and you see these people hanging around. This one's the coffee machine, and this one doing this, and this one's out back talking with some buddies, or this one's just going so slow to do everything because they're just stretching it out. Well, they're paying me to do this, but I'm going to make everything take as long as possible, so maybe I'll do less during the day. I won't work as hard. I won't go home so tired. These are people that not only are they selfish, they're just ignorant, they don't have a connection with God, but they've been taught this. This is what they've learned from the society in which they live. How to get the most for the least. Some people even go so far as they get into the generational thing of taking money from the government. It's the same thing. They don't try to improve themselves. I'm getting this money from the government. My kids are going to get the money. My grandkids, if I have another grandkid, that kid's going to get some more money from the government. Those people are in the way of stealing. And they don't even realize it, and the government condones it. And it's a way of thinking. And when we get upset about it, you and I get upset about it, and we call them a jerk, or whatever we want to call them, and we allow it to get under your skin, you're actually, this is a very terrible thing. You're allowing these people to control your thinking and how you feel. God's no longer in control. This other person's in control. Because that person is pushing your buttons. You've lost control. You've handed it over to this other person. And they're now controlling you instead of God controlling you. Now, I know exactly what you're saying, Terry. I know it's aggravating as heck. And I've been at all different levels of management, including general management in my lifetime. And so I know what it feels like, exactly what you're saying. But I never was in those positions with how my relationship is with God today. When sometimes on Friday afternoon, I go over to our shul, our Bet Knesset, we call them, the synagogue, and I go over there a little bit early. Why do I go over there a little bit early? Well, the night before, somebody had some study classes. The chairs aren't lined up to where they're supposed to be. The floor's a little dirty. The tables that we use need clean tablecloths on them. Somebody left some trash outside the door. Some of the people go in and don't even think about it. Some people come 10 minutes late, just they don't even think that there's something needs to be done beforehand. I don't get aggravated at these people. And they're people coming to pray and to study and I have time, so I go and do it. I go into a place, I'll come in and I'll see, we use throwaway stuff, plates and cups and stuff. You'll see 4 empty coffee cup, paper cups on the table. Why couldn't those people, when they got up to leave, just put them in the trash? You go in after a night study session, and there's books all over the place. The shelves are right there. They've taken them off the shelf to study. Why didn't they put them back in? Now, are these people not connected to God? Of course they are. They're connected to God, but they haven't learned yet this thing about, and I can only call it being kind. I don't know any other way to put it. In putting back a book, throwing a coffee cup away, things like that. In a job, it's even tougher because these people are getting paid to do this stuff. They're getting paid to work just like you are. And they're finding ways to cheat the employer. Now, whose conscientiousness, that's a good word to use. The important thing here is you have to realize it's not your responsibility, not to judge the people and not to call them a thief if they're stealing time or they take an extra 10 minutes for lunch or something. That's management's problem. Every place has somebody in charge. God has put us in a management position here on this earth to help people learn about these things. But if we allow it to bother us inside, to get under our skin, to take the smile from our face, to get us to the point where we look at somebody and we're a little aggravated and some customer calls us or wife or kid on the phone and we're a little short with them because we're thinking about this thing over here. We've done an injustice. How people are in the world at work, or how they treat other people, or how they do anything is not ours to judge. We can know this person is not doing it the way you would do it because you have the connection with God, but they may be doing it just because they don't have the same connection you do with God. Then they're ignorant of it. They don't know it. They were brought up a certain way. You know, I'm sure I've said this before. If someone back in the day would kill someone else, I'm going to use the word kill, not murder, and everybody knows that the person killed this other person, and even to the point that they lied in wait. They planned the murder. They made it a murder. They planned it. It wasn't accidental. When they go in front of the judges, if everyone that stands in front of the judges says, yes, 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 he murdered him, here's what he did it this time, I saw him do this, I saw him do that, and then the judges all say guilty, 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 the person's set free. Why? Because not one person went to look for the good in that person, even a murderer. I hate to say this, but even someone that does weird things, inappropriate things in front of other people, or treats younger people inappropriately and things like that, you can never have a unanimous guilty verdict. You always have to have someone to stand up and say, hold on a minute. This person is really a good person. I've seen this person feeding the poor. I've seen this person doing this and that and the other thing. If no one can say anything good about the person, so if you look at somebody and you only think that they're a lazy idiot, but they're and don't see any good in the person at all, then you're making a judgment that shouldn't be made. The Baal Shem Tov, what was one of his greatest, this is what Hasidus is. Before then, the Jewish scholars looked down at the other people. If you were a shoemaker, go to the shoemaker synagogue and pray over there. Don't come where we are. Believe it or not, this is the way it was. There was a looking down on. Those that studied looked down at the other people that did every jobs and all that kind of stuff. So Baal Shem Tov says, wait a minute, what are you talking about here? Everybody's good. Everybody has some good in them. We just have to help them see it sometimes. But we have to look at the good in everybody. Baal Shem Tov spent his formative years what? Going around as a tradesman, and he wasn't some big person that everybody looked up to, but everybody talked to him because he was wise, and he would be an innkeeper. He would do this or do something else. But he always told people, look for the good in everybody. Look for the good in everybody. No matter who it is. God does. He always does. The person that can be the worst person in the world, doing the worst possible things, and there's a question here about Hitler and al-Baghdadi and people like that. Those people were terrible murderers. Yes, but they still had somewhere in them they had good. Because everything God created, he said, is good. Who am I to say that a person created in God's image has no good in them? That's not true. I have to connect to the good in them. I have to look for the good in them. And I'm sure every one of you has had in your lifetime a time when you've befriended somebody that everybody else has picked on. Or you befriended somebody that was a little bit different and everybody else was giving them a hard time. Well, all these things, Terry, you just mentioned are exactly in the same category. There's no difference. So I know in the beginning it's irritating as heck.
I think
really irritating. Go ahead, Terry.
I think I get what you're saying. In my mind, what just came to my mind is that we've got to look for the good in the other person, not the righteousness in that person.
That's the way to put it. Yes.
Because they may, and since we're talking about, I mean, we can only hypothetically talk about the situation with Noah, he didn't present to God. There had to be people that were in his generation that may not have been righteous, but were good people. And that wasn't presented, maybe even in prayer or something to God or something. Maybe there were maybe the ones that were good had no advocate to speak for them. They may not have been righteous, but they may have been good.
That's true. You're probably right. Same in Sodom and Gomorrah. I'm sure there were people there that were good, but they weren't righteous. And remember the discussion Abraham has with God. If there are 10 righteous people, he didn't say good people, he said righteous people.
Well, I mean, the sages teach that righteousness was even a defective righteousness, even if their righteousness was defective, because the word righteousness misspelled is missing a yud, according to the commentary on Bracious.
Yeah,
and so that and what it refers to, they even went further. Even if these people who were righteous, they hid their righteousness, they were closet righteous people. It even that tells what's the defective part of their righteousness was, they hid it.
Right. Now, not to change the subject, but you just reminded me of something I wrote down in the beginning. But wait a minute, basically the only way to influence them is to continue to make the considerate choices ourselves and wait for them to follow our example. Bezrat Hashem. Well, yes and no. But let me finish reading. And to ask for mercy from Hashem for their shortcomings. If so, it's going to be a long tikkun for our world if that's the case, but I guess we need patience. Yeah, that's true. Except that we don't have to wait for them to change. If you focus on that, you're taking away from your own energy. If you're sitting back being patient with somebody, waiting for them to change, or even expecting them to change, or even praying for them for God to change somebody, you're wasting your time. In other words, that energy can be used to do a positive action, because the waiting for the person is a negative action. It's using energy in the wrong way. That's like some people get married and the husband says, well, all right, it's almost right. I'll just change her I'll work on the change after we get married. And the wife's thinking the same thing about the husband. What happens to him? 50% of people get divorced today. So you don't have to have patience for them. You should, because patience connotates that you have to control an anger, or you have to control something in you, so you have patience for them. You don't want to use that energy that way. You use it when you're first learning how not to feel negative. You use the energy. But once you've learned, then 10 different people can do the same thing, and your response is the same. Okay, that's who they are right now. That's what God says about every one of us. That's what God said about every one of you at every moment in your life. That's what he said to me. Okay, that's who Pesach is right now. Of course, he had the advantage of knowing where I was going, but I didn't. But the point is, you look at somebody and say, this is who that person is at this point in time. And I have to accept who that person is just the way they have to accept who I am. And God did not create anything bad, period. So if I look at a person and think they're bad, I'm judging something wrongly. God never said, well, I created this and it was bad. I don't think you can find a passage anywhere in the Tanakh where things like that God said. People can do bad things, they can think bad, but God didn't create anybody bad. Everything he created is good. Even the scorpion and the black widow spider and the rattlesnake, it's all good. What do you do about a grown child? Well, lots of us have grown children that are what we call off the way, off the derech. Some of us didn't even come on the derech till we were older than than 40 or 50. Some of us got lucky and got on it earlier, some later. I remember when I came back to the Jewish way, and I said to God, I had the audacity to say to God, what did you wait so long to show me this for? Why did you wait till I was in my 60s to get me involved here? He didn't wait for anything. He was letting me be me. And yeah, Devorah, you're right, it hurts very much. But you have to remember, you were maybe once there too. It just takes time. If you live your life as the way you're supposed to as a Jew or as a righteous among the nations, and you set the example for the next, that's why being a mother and a housewife is so important. And unfortunately, a lot of us never realized how important it was in the home until we get to a point where we're not so focused on raising children. We start focusing more on God, and we hook up, and we've already taught our children some bad habits. We've already taught them kind of bad ways of thinking. So, yeah, it hurts. Absolutely hurts. Everybody can think of somebody right now in their life that you feel that way about. There's kids, it could even be parents, it could be a cousin, it could be a best friend. It could be someone you've been friends with for years and you have gone forward and they've just stayed where they are. And so it's caused a little short circuit in the friendship. Whenever you start to think in a judgmental manner about someone, then you're using your energy, taking up your time when you could be doing something better. And then if you let it get under your skin, that's not good. Is that how I can put it? Now, I don't know if everybody here knows who Shara is from Noah I Don't Like Community, and she's got a Facebook page, Raising Noah, now and some others. But their focus is not on teaching, but living. How do I apply what I have to my life today? How do I pass it on to my children? This is good. This is what Shira is going to be talking about this week on the meeting on Saturday night. Us guys got a responsibility to do this too. We have a responsibility to mothers like to use this, just wait till your dad gets home. Thing with the kids. It's like a threat to the kids. But when dad comes home, I never was in a position where I was going to punish my kids. I was always in a position where I wanted to teach them something. I never told my kids how bad they were. I just tried to show them how to do something better. Terry, I'll give you the mic in 1 second. Let me just finish this off. When my kids came home from school with their report cards, no matter what grade they got, I only had one question for them. Did you do the best you can do? If they tell me yes, I can't argue about whatever grade they bring home. If they can truthfully tell me that they did the best they could do. If they might tell me, if they tell me, no, I didn't do the best. I'd love to hear that. No, I really didn't do the best, but I'm gonna do better this next time. When they understand what they're doing, that's the important thing. There's a guy that won the Nobel Peace Prize back in the 40s, I think, 40s or 50s. And he was in an interview, and they asked him why, who do you give credit to for all this learning and all this stuff you're doing? And he said, to my parents. He said, what do you mean? He said, because they never, ever asked me what I learned when I came home from school that day. They always asked me, did you ask a good question in school today? See the difference? Did you ask the teacher something, the professor, something that you could get information from, you could build yourself up from? Not what did he teach you? Did you ask a good question? Did you seek the information properly? This is what we're trying to show people. You guys right now, and it's like a tsunami that's happening right now in the world. The prophecies are coming true. And we have to show people how to ask the right question, how to go in the proper direction. This is what we're teaching people. Terry, you want to say something?
Scotty's got his hand raised.
Okay.
Go ahead, Scotty.
Pesach, this is a wonderful teaching tonight. And I want to ask before you close, if you would back up and reiterate something that you said a minute ago that just caught my attention. And I think I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't say it as good as you did. But don't allow the persons that are doing wrong to disrupt your doing good.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Now, how do they disrupt your doing good? The minute that you let them get under your skin, you get aggravated, you get a little angry. The minute you do that, you're taking energy you could be using to do something good and letting them control it. You're letting them say to you, I'm going to push your button. Now, sometimes our kids, especially when they're younger, they learn how to push our buttons, and then we have to control them. But when you're in a work environment or something, or you're out on the street, or you're in a restaurant, whatever it is, a waitress takes too long a time to bring you. Sharon and I very rarely go out to a restaurant. We went yesterday and sat out on a restaurant with a view out over the Sea of Galilee up in Spot in the mountains, and it's just a beautiful place. And I found myself, we ordered the food, and I found myself getting a little impatient about how long it was taking to come. And I said, now I'm allowing what's happening to interfere with this beautiful scene that I'm looking at, the time with my wife. It's going to take away from me I could be enjoying or doing good or having a good conversation with my wife instead of thinking about when the food is and things like that. And it hasn't happened to me in a long time, but it took away enjoyment. It took away my time to, even when you're sitting out there, you guys hopefully will come and visit us in Spot one day. And you're looking out over God's creation, you're seeing the beauty of it, the mountain ranges going down. You look up on the Golan Heights, and it's just, and then you look all the way down. You go from the Golan Heights, and we're in the highest place in Israel. We look down on one of the lowest places in Israel, the Kinneret, it's below sea level. And the difference is so much that I had a friend come and visit me from down there the other day, and he came up and said, I didn't bring a jacket or sweater with me. It's cold up here. And we're looking right down at the Sea of Galilee. And it was probably 10 or 12 degrees warmer down there than it is up here. And we're only it's 40-minute drive up the mountain. But Scotty, what we're saying is that at any time, yeah, it's a good way to put it. Don't allow the other people to take the time away from the good you can be doing. It's so important. even if it's just for a few seconds, if you can stop it, you're training yourself not to get into it. You know, my father put in me a pretty good work ethic. He says, you're going to work for somebody, give them their due for what they're going to pay you and give them a little bit more. And why did he tell me this? He says, because if you do that, you're going to get in the habit of doing that with whatever you do. And so I'm in the habit of doing that with God too. I just want to give him just a touch more. I think I've got to the limit what I can give him. We'll give just a touch more. And I'm not talking about just monetarily. I'm talking about with my energy, with my thoughts, with everything. Someone treats me badly, I'm going to treat them good. I'm going to treat them with just a touch more. Maybe that night when they're sitting in their home, they'll think about the little experience they had with the little Pesach, where he didn't get flustered and didn't get angry and didn't make a mean face or didn't show in his face the negativity, and it might think about him. Look, I'm going to say this real quick and I'm going to just open it up again. When I came to Sfat and I joined Chabad, there were guys that welcomed me with open arms. Then there were guys that I'd say to them every day, good morning, and give them a smile. They wouldn't answer me, or they'd walk right by me, or some of them would even, when he's mean, what I call a mean face guy in the morning, like he didn't have enough coffee yet or something. A few of the guys took me years to overcome this with them. And we had a get together a couple of months ago. It was one of the guys' birthdays. And he's close to the same age I am. And the guy turned to me, and I've only known him 2.5, 3 years. And he says, I want to thank you for what you brought into my life. I said, what's that? He says, well, you taught me I should smile all the time instead of grimace. And I should think everybody in the positive instead of judging everybody. Because every day you walked up to me and you gave me a smile and you said, have a good day. And some days I didn't even answer you. Some days I turned away from you, but you didn't give up. You kept doing it day after day after day after day. He said, at my age, you taught me something. Like it was a big surprise, but that's what I tried to do. And I do that with everybody here in Sfat. Because I'm part of a community here. And I don't let somebody walk by me without saying to them, in Hebrew, Shalom Aleichem, peace be with you. And I do it until I get an answer back. But I always try to do it first for everybody. That's one of the things that I do. So I know, if I was living in America and I was still living where I was living, you can't do that. Some people don't even know who their neighbors are, But the point I'm making here is don't let anybody put you off your good. God gave you this good. Use it. Don't let somebody steal it from you. The only way you can do that is train yourself for it, and it's hard. I think, aside from turning to the God of Israel and accepting him and understanding that he is the creator of us all, and he gave us a set of rules to live by, one of the hardest things to do is to learn how to be in control of what it is he gave you, the good that he gave you. Now, Scotty, I know you, and I know the things you do, and I know how you treat people, and you treat them good, and you let the God part flow through you out to the other people, and you do it in a way like you're not kind of like showing up, showing off. That's what I'm trying to say. You're doing it because, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what God wants from me. And other people feel that too. They feel that connection from God, from you to God back down to them. This is what we're alive for. This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to bring heaven down here on earth. You know, there is no new heaven and new earth that they write about in the Bible, in the Torah. It's all right here. God said, I made the heavens, that's where I am, but the earth is yours. It's yours forever, for eternity. Nothing's going to change. But what changes down here is, yes, it was given to us, but we're connecting, we're making the connection, the pipeline from up there down to here. We're pulling down that power. When the Mashiach comes, that's really when we're going to see it and feel it, but you can see and feel right now. Just don't let the negative get into what you're doing. You sent me that video of Doris Day last week, Scotty. You know, you got high hopes, high and sky apple pie hopes, you know, but don't give up. Do not let somebody talk you down. Don't make them angry. Don't let them make you angry. Don't let them get under your skin. Use your life for good. Use it for good. And you're going to go to sleep at night feeling good. You're going to wake up in the morning feeling good. I do suggest that you use, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the Modeani, the prayer you say every morning when you wake up to reconnect yourself. Put your mind right, okay, I'm thinking about God first and thanking him for what he did for me and giving me another day. I suggest you do the Shema Yisrael. Those two, if nothing else, those two prayers keep you connected to him. I don't know how many times a day I say that the Shema, the two verses, this is the first two verses. When I go to bed at night, if I'm having a little trouble sleeping, I don't count sheep. I say the Shema over and over again. And I end up falling asleep. I'm sleeping. I know this sounds silly, but covered by God. So it relaxes me. It tells me, don't worry about a thing. Just go to sleep. Don't worry about that person that might have got you mad today. Don't think about it. Don't waste your time on it. Just relax and enjoy your relationship with God. Amen. Yeah, thank you for that comment about Shira. So Shira's always smiling too. She just talks and smiles at the same time. Just looking at her makes me happy. See, this is the connection, folks. I mean, it's a good way to put it. I know she's my wife, and I know I'm kind of bragging about her, but this is it. One of the first lessons I learned in how to be a successful salesman was to smile all the time. Because people see the smile and they connect to it. It makes them feel good. It gives them a connection. Now, you can teach somebody how to do something and show them, but if they don't want to learn it, forget it. They still want to steal time at work. They still want to take all day long to do something that should take them 3 or 4 hours. That's the management of that particular place where you work. That's their problem. We work for a much higher manager anyway. And we're supposed to set an example for everybody else how to work for him, how to be connected to him. Anybody else have anything they want to question?
Scotty has his hand raised.
Okay.
Go ahead, Scotty.
Well, just one more thing I'm about to tell on myself. A couple of weeks ago, we've had some issues over the past few weeks with mail at our house being, we get somebody else's mail and our mail ends up somewhere else. And I had ordered a couple of books and I was really watching them, travel to my house. The day they were going to get delivered, all of a sudden it said that they were being held at the post office. So I'm just going to be honest with you. I got upset. And I went to the post office the next morning And I don't know if any of you have ever tried to call the postmaster. You know, you don't get them. You just leave a message. Well, just so happened I was sitting in the parking lot and I called the postmaster of our local post office, and the postmaster answered the phone.
Wow.
And I said, now I was already planning in my mind what I was going to say to them. And I just said, I've got these books, and make a long story short, y'all got them. And I don't know what's going on. And they said, well, wait just a minute. Let me check it out. So just in a few minutes, the postmaster came back on and said, listen, I've got them right here in my hand. And of course, I told him I was in the parking lot. If you'll meet me at the front door, I'll bring it to you. Well, as I was walking to the post office, I'm going to be honest with you. I was going through my mind. I just wanted to give them a piece of my mind about my mail over the past couple of weeks being messed up. Well, when I got there and the person came out and handed me my packages, an overwhelming feeling come on me, and they said, we are so sorry this happened. Before I knew it, I said, you know what? It's okay. Everything is just fine. And I always, some of you know, I always carry dollar bills in my pocket to give to people, to give to charity. Well, before I knew it, I stuck my hand in my pocket and pulled out this dollar bill. And I looked at the postmaster and I said, I want to ask you to do me a favor. I want to give you this dollar bill to put in a charity box somewhere. Do you know what a charity box is? And she said, yes. As a matter of fact, we have a charity box in our office. Your postman, we've had other people delivering your mail. Your postman has been sick for 2 weeks and he's not been on your route. And that's why your mail's been messed up. And I almost missed that opportunity. I almost missed it. And
There you go.
so, you know, I just thank Hashem that he has allowed me to control my anger. You know, times when I want to blow people out of the water, so to speak, that when it starts to come out, my good intentions come out. So anyway, I just wonder, I almost don't miss that opportunity. I think that's what Pesach is saying tonight. Don't miss that opportunity.
Oh, that's a great, that's not telling on yourself. That's a showing how it works. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think everybody has a problem with their mail. I got to the point where they don't even deliver it to my place. I went and got a post office box. and so I go and check my mail myself. I don't have to wait for it to come to the house. Everybody's got those aggravating little moments in their lives. I got rid of mine when I went and got my own post office box. I don't even think about it anymore. It's it. It's over with. So what you're doing and what we do and what we're supposed to do is something is aggravating us. We have to take and find some way to deal with it so it doesn't aggravate us anymore. So we don't think about it anymore. So we don't spend time thinking about that when we could be thinking about something else, something good. And you almost missed an opportunity to do a blessing, which this is, God put it right in front of you to do the blessing. And so you're not telling on yourself, you thought properly. You went through the whole thing and came out properly at the El Dorado. That can happen in every situation you're in. I've learned one thing about people. Lots of times when people are angry or aggravated or act nasty, it has nothing to do with the person they're standing in front of. It's because someone treated them in an improper way earlier. And this is how it comes out. They're angry, they hold it in, they haven't been looking, they didn't say, okay, I shouldn't get angry. It shouldn't affect me because it's going to affect what my thinking today. I'm going to go home and talk about it in the house. I'm going to tell friends about it. People love to tell bad experiences to other people. Oh, look what happened to me. Why take the time and trouble? Just let it go, push it down. You may have to go through a thought process to do it, and that thought process is not going like this to the other person, but going up to God first, letting him help you handle that situation, bringing it back down. Putting him first in your thoughts. Because you don't know what's going on. Just like the post, you had a different post guy. Well, for the last month, we have two here in our neighborhood. And so I'm getting mail for other people in my mailbox, which never gets any mail in it. So I just take it over instead of going to the post office and complaining. What happens? A month of holidays, some people take off. During Sukkot, people take off. During the high holidays, 2 weeks, 3 weeks off, and they bring in subs. Subs really, okay, I'm getting paid for this, and okay, the name isn't the same name, but I think this is where it should go. That's how they operate. There's nothing to do about it, except just do it. This is more important to learn in your life than reading all the commentaries you can possibly read about a certain part of the Chumash, a certain part of the 5 books of Moses. Because here you're actually applying something that changes you and changes the people around you. Terry quoted some commentary he read a while ago, and I wrote down here very quickly about opinions. I can't find it now. One of the greatest things you can possibly learn about what you're going to learn about the Torah and what it's teaching is that there's more than one way to look at it, still keeping it connected to Torah. Some people say Noah was not such a good guy because he didn't think of other people. But God said he's righteous. Now, I'm going to tell, well, he didn't think anybody else but himself. See, why should I do that? But this sage got this from it, and another sage got something different, and another sage got something different, and another sage got something different. So all of them are stating what they got from what they read, but they're not saying this is the way it was. So we don't have to choose between them all. We can read them all, put them together, say, okay, it could have been any one of these ways. Which way would I like to go if I was Noah? Which way would I like it to be? But still connected to Torah. But you don't have to, one person may say this, the other person says that, but it's not something to have a disagreement about it. It's okay. Everything you read, whether it's Rashi or Onkelos or any of them, they're discussions they're having throughout the centuries. That's why when you read the Zohar and you get what Shimon Bar Yochai got out of the Zohar, and then you come up to Baal Shem Tov, he got something different. But they're not, one isn't right and one isn't wrong. It's just a part of the learning process. Tomorrow, when you go out amongst people, if you can do nothing else but not feel any anger or impatience or judge anybody because of the way they're dressed or because of whatever they do, you're going to have a good day. Because you're not going to waste time on things that you know God created everything good, including every single human being that's created in his image. And there's always good in everybody. Now, some people call it giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. Okay, if that's the way you want to define it, that's fine. But it's simply looking for good in everything, in every situation, And also, when you get into like a little negative situation, whether you felt you tripped over a stone or something like that, you say, wait a minute, am I getting a message back because of something I did or thought or said? And God, he's saying, I want your attention for a minute. There's a book called The Garden of Emunah, I think is the name of it, by Sholem Arush. It talks about this. It gets a little extreme, I think, but still, it's something to think about. You know, I carry a special, you carry dollar bills. I carry a special purse with me. It's not here on my desk right now. It's just a little pocket thing, just full of change. And then it has another pocket where I put a bunch of tens in it. And the tens here are coins, 10 shekel coins. And when people come up to me and ask for money, and they do it a lot to somebody that's dressed like me because they know that we're actually not supposed to not give. I reach in, and whatever comes out, comes out. Now, the tens I keep separate because if someone comes to me and says that somebody needs some medicine or if they actually come out specifically, or my daughter's getting married, I don't have enough money to give her a proper wedding or something, I go into the 10 side. Oh, that's the book you got at the post office that day? Well, you got a couple of lessons there, Scotty. Pretty cool. Listen, I hope you guys got something out of the meeting tonight. But this is what we're trying to do is to show people how you can live your life and make your connection with God better, and at the same time making other people's without evangelizing, without hellfire and damnation and all this other stuff, just by looking at the good. There's a message that Shara put in. It might take a minute to read it. But, you know, I would do this if someone's being rude or being disruptive in one of the groups. I just don't say anything. I just delete the post. That's why in our Torah for the Nations and B'nai Noach connection with Israel, in those places, posts have to get approved. Anybody can join as a public group. We still have to approve posts. Shira got in the women's gathering, someone's trying to put up a post from a different website. I think it's called Manna from Heaven or something like that. And people try to teach other people things by their own interpretation of what they read, not even if they've left religion even, and they think that they're walking in the proper manner. They want everybody to know their opinion. And so they'll write this big, long explanation about stuff. And there's not a quote from it came from this sage or this person or that person. It just says, well, I read Zechariah this, or I read in Genesis this. And they give their opinion. They're not backing it up with anything. Danger, 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 warning, warning, warning. If you're running a group on the internet, and even on your own Facebook page, somebody puts something up and you don't like it, just delete it. You don't have to be nice. You just delete it. You don't have to tell the person anything. Somebody posted something in our group a couple of weeks back, and he lives right here in Spot, and I tried to get a hold of him because what he put in had a bunch of negative stuff about Christianity in it. I said, we just don't go in that direction. We don't do those things. But it took me a while. He didn't want to talk to me on the phone. We live in the same little village. He tried to avoid me. Finally, I got a hold of him, and I told him what I thought. And so the next post that he put out, I had to sit there and listen to the teaching. because it was a video, and it was good. Then the next one I listened to was back with negative stuff. So I don't want that around us. We don't need that negative stuff. We don't need stuff that pushes our buttons. If you're responsible for a group, and one of the neatest things I've seen done, Shara told people in that group, No Hide Connect? I forget the name of the group. Nog, yeah. that this is not a teaching group. This is a community. You don't need people coming in and starting debates and trying to teach somebody something else something. If they want to learn, let them go to places to learn. Be the community. Keep it positive. Keep it on the up-go. Don't allow people to come in and say, well, it's great, but we think this, and we think that, and da. Just don't let them do it. If that's not what the group's about, you don't have to be nice. That's exactly right. Shara puts it, go to TFTN to learn. Yes, go to Torah for the Nation. You want to learn? Come see me. You got questions? Come see me. Send me messages. Talk to me. Joy does it all the time. Other people do it all the time. If I'm busy, I usually get back within an hour or two, and I'm willing to help people learn. And learn not to be judgmental of other people, and to just live life. That's what we're here for. We're here to live life in God's service and to do everything the way He wants us to do it to the best of our ability. And not, some of us can do it better than others. So you don't have to reach out to people. If you handle them improperly and they stop talking to you, all right. Look, there's a little rule about if you treat somebody improperly, and it comes into play every year around Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. If you go to somebody and try to apologize, and you apologize to them sincerely, and they don't accept it, you can go 3 times to them. Once you've done that, it's over. Over. Don't worry about it. You've done your bit. You've shown God, not them, that you know you did something wrong and you've learned from it. But from the Jewish point of view, we are told we can't refuse somebody's apology. It says it in the Torah. In Halakha, if someone comes and apologizes, we must accept it in the proper way. But some people don't do that. They really want to carry it around with them. Well, that's their business. They want to have that little thing that I treated them improperly for the rest of their life. They're going to think about it every day. That's their business. If I tried to apologize, or they came to me and say, you know what, I feel a little bit wronged. One of the groups I was in, I put something in, and the person that it was like, not the leader of the group, but the teaching leader of the group, just put all kinds of weird comments on what I said. And so I got a hold of the person and said, what are you talking about? I said, first of all, you don't use that kind of language. You don't talk about somebody you don't even know. And he was Jewish. In the end, he apologized, but you know what? He doesn't have anything to do with me anymore. That's his business. He apologized. I accepted his apology. What he does from there is fine, but he shouldn't have done it in the first place. We shouldn't do it any done. Yeah, okay. This is one of my biggest problems. There's a question here I just saw. Sorry, I just saw it. People get impatient with other drivers. Oh, I had a big problem with that. Pull out of my driveway going up the street, and somebody pulls out in front of me, or they're driving real slow. They're doing 20 and 40 miles on or 30 miles. And I just, They used to ready to get aggravated, and Cher would tell me, "What are you talking about? I didn't even notice it. Didn't notice a traffic jam. Didn't know shit." So I said, well, I shouldn't let it affect me that way. So I actually worked on it. When I started to feel it, I would put it aside. But I would still say something about it. And then Cher said, "Oh, I thought you weren't going to let that bother you anymore." I said, "Well, it doesn't, but I'm just venting a little bit, just speaking it out." And then I got to the point where I don't care. Whatever they do, they do. Whatever they do, they do. So, and here in Spot, and most of Israel, our streets are 2 lanes, so you can go, in 2 different directions. And then they put parking on either side. And some people park a little further away from the curb, and somebody puts a truck there. And the roads are so narrow that you have to kind of wind even if it's a one-way street, you have to wind your way through the streets so you don't hit another car. And big buses come through there. You should see the buses come up the street behind me. It takes them about 15 minutes to drive, that someone in a small car drives it in about 4 minutes or 5 minutes, because the buses have to maneuver their way through the parked cars. It used to really aggravate me. Why can't people park their cars right? And then I realized Shara said a few things to me, and I just realized it's a waste of time. But if somebody doesn't want to give up, whether it's impatience with other drivers or anything else, there's nothing you can do about it. You just, okay, that's the way the person is, and you accept it from them. You don't have to feel aggravated or upset that every time they get in the car they're going, blah, 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 blah. So okay, that's who that person is, and I accept that person the way they are, because that's the way God does for us, and we're created in His image, and that's what we're supposed to do with other people. Now, there are some limits to that, and I think you can use your own logic about that. But essentially, that's what you do. If you know that there's a person you talk to, and they're always being negative, they're always complaining and all this kind of stuff, you just say, okay, well, I'm friends with this person. That's the way the person is. So that's who they are, and I'll just listen. You don't have to react. They may need you for that in their life. So, if you can't, no, you don't have to hunt that. You don't have to send messages. You don't have to hunt anybody down. No. You move on. Always do the good. Always look for the good. And don't let anything get under your skin. Now, having said that, we all have relationships where we can't work that way. The biggest one is between husband and wife. You're welcome. You can be good and have a very calm and good life with everybody else, and every once in a while, your husband or wife can push your button. You get angry. Sometimes you even say things that you don't mean to say. This takes a lot of learning, but always remember that person couldn't push that button if you didn't love them as much as you did. There's a thin line between that love and hate feeling. They're both on the same line. And when someone you love, really love, does something you don't expect from them, it can make you angry. Or they bring up something to you that makes you angry because they even bring it up. Understand, from their standpoint, they wouldn't bring it up unless they loved you. And you couldn't get so angry about it unless you loved them that much. And guys, in the Bible, it says in Genesis, in creation, it says that Eve was created, the Hebrew word is neged, man. In other words, there's this word neged, or against, can be has many definitions, not interpreted definitions. The woman is supposed to actually point out to us when we do things in an improper way. There are reflection, there are mirror. And so we're supposed to be able to take this. God made us that way. But sometimes we don't. Now, I'm not saying to the women that are listening that, you know, you can, that there's a whole teaching in this. Maybe Cheryl will get into it. But when you get angry with your wife or your husband, remember that the only reason they can push that button is because you love them so much. They can push buttons that nobody else can touch. They can sometimes get you to an anger level that nobody else could ever get you to. Most of the time, the anger is from surprise. You weren't expecting it. So it happens to everybody. I don't care. I'm sure it happened to the Rebbe. I'm sure it happened to Rabbi Nachman. It happens to everybody. There's no way you can avoid it. Someone you love that much can do that to you because you're so open to that person. Someone you love that much can say something to you that will hurt you, and somebody else can say the same thing that won't hurt you. So remember that, and it'll help you with your anger. So I think that's brings it down to the end of it, I think. Anybody have any other questions or comments they want to make? Look, I really want to, and I should have said this at the beginning because I don't know how many people watch it all the way to the end. But to you guys, I want to tell you that if you have questions, if you need something, Shira is here. I'm here. You can come to us at any time, and we're more than happy to help. Sometimes we need guidance. Everybody's supposed to have what we call as a mashpia, someone that influences their life. And it's someone that they can go ask questions and talk to. Not necessarily, I mean, if I want to go to know how to make my pot kosher because I screwed up, then I'll go to the mechanic, the rabbi that can tell me how to do that. But sometimes you get to a point where you have decisions to make, and how should you do? Shara, this is a good question you put in it. I'm going to use this as an example. You feel like you handled something terribly, and how should you have done it? And what should I do now that it's done? You must come to someone to help you through things like this. So we're open. Look, everybody we have iPhones. We have smartphones. The only time I'm really not disconnected is if I happen to be in a class or during one of my prayer times. Anybody can send a message anytime, or I'm sleeping, but anybody can send a message at any time, and you're going to get an answer. If you want to talk, we can talk. Facebook Messenger, you can talk anywhere in the world, and it doesn't cost a penny anymore. Just right through the internet, right? If you need something, ask. We're here. I'll help you. Now I'm going to ask you to do something to help. Get other people involved with this group. Get other people. I know some people they just want to learn. What's it say here? What's it say there? What's the halakha for this? What's the halakha for that? That's fine. If that's where they want to go. But here's where everybody should start. The other deeper stuff you can get into as you move up the ladder. We're all got to start somewhere. And if we relate it to our school years, you got kindergarten, you got first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, but you don't decide when you're in kindergarten you want to go to 11th grade. You got to learn everything going up to it too. Exactly, Terry. I like the way Terry put it. This type of class is what we're needing, where the rubber meets the road. That's the real deal. You can have all the intellectual stuff you want in your head. You can know that air has to be in the tire so you can ride down the road, but if you don't put the air in the tire, you ain't going nowhere. To put it quite bluntly. God bless you guys. I really appreciate you coming. I know this always goes longer than the hour we say it's going to go. I enjoy it. And I hope you guys stick around, so I guess it's okay with you guys too. And just remember, don't do a this way connection with people. Do it God and then back down again. So you're bringing a part of that heaven down with you, down to this other person. Whether they receive it or not, doesn't make any difference. You're doing your job. You're put in front of them, and you don't know that what you do right at that time, at that minute, you have no idea how it's going to affect that person later in their life. You have no idea. Scotty, when you handed that $1 to the postman and said, put it in a charity box, and she said, oh, we have a charity box here. You know how many times she's going to tell that story to other people? And that's not to your credit, it's to God's credit. And somebody's going to learn from that. Maybe not the person that was standing in front of you. It might be somebody else that she tells the story to. Remember, everything you do has an effect down the road somewhere. So keep it all positive, because the negative you do does the same thing. God bless you guys. I appreciate coming around. I appreciate taking the time. And we'll see you next week at the same time. In the meantime, you need to get in touch, please do. No problem. Shira and I are both very happy to help you out in any way we can.
Yes.
God bless you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.